All right, welcome back to Train Signal. This is the boot machine with a virtual hard disk video. We're going to be showing you how to boot a physical machine with a VHD file. Very cool stuff. You can actually test out new server techniques or even Windows 7 stuff too, because this technique also works on Windows 7. So we have some multiple uses for this. But the nice thing about it is you can actually load up a new operating system. And by the way, this only does work with Windows Server 2008 R2 and Windows 7. This does not work with older operating systems. So I know some of you are thinking, hey, woohoo, dual boot, right? Nope, sorry. But we will allow you to test new stuff on Server 2008 R2 and Windows 7 without having to blow away your current operating system. So that's a beautiful thing. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in this video. One of the questions is, of course, why would you want to do that? And I know I've kind of answered that question, but we'll get into it a little more in depth. And then also, I wanted to introduce you to my script for this because, this is not hard stuff. And by the way, you can't perform all of this with a script. Well, I suppose you could, but I'm going to teach you a couple of pretty easy commands that you'll be able to remember. There's one particular variable in the script that the GUID, it's hard to type because it's really long, and it's easier to type it once and just drop it into a script. I'll show you what that's all about, but I want to, again, just make this as easy for you as it is for me, because that's really what scripting is all about, making stuff just a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and talk about what's up with this VHD boot thing. Now, you already know that the virtual hard drive lives on a physical hard drive. It's a file. It's not a hard drive in and of itself. It just is a file. And here's the thing with Server 2008 and Windows 7, instead of booting up the OS from the physical drive, in Server 2008 R2 and 7, Windows 7, we can actually boot up from the VHD on the hard disk. So that's pretty cool. We can actually move over to where that file is and use that file as our boot up sequence. So good stuff. Here's why this is a really good idea. Think of it like a disposable test operating system. You can load up an operating system that's different from your primary OS on the particular machine. You can tweak, test, blow stuff up, whatever. See how stuff works, without having to blow away your primary operating system. This is great for developers and admins who are trying out new things. Here's the cool thing about it. If it doesn't work, you just delete the VHD. Yeah, that's it, As I researched this technique, it is also possible to boot up a virtual hard drive from a USB drive. Now, if you want to know more about this, I don't go into this in this video, but you can Google or use Microsoft's Bing search engine to find out information on how to do this. I've skipped that extravaganza due to I'm not sure how useful in everyday situations that really is going to be. So let me go ahead and introduce you to the script. We're going to be using the BCD edit command to set this whole thing up. Now, it's not a hard command. It's really not, but it's still easier to use this command in a script because we have to use this GUID stuff. Let me go ahead and break out my pencil here. We have to type in some crazy numbers into this particular script. And one of the easiest ways to do that is, instead of having to type all that out in individual commands, type it in once, copy and paste it into a couple places in the script that I'm providing you that's included with this course, and just use that. That's really what that boils down to. So let's go ahead and let's move on over to a server. Let's try it out. Now, what we're going to do in our exercise is, first of all, I'm going to be performing this technique on my physical domain controller. I'm going to be copying over a virtual hard drive from my Hyper-V machine. I think we'll probably do the server core one because, that's kind of cool. To make sure that you see that we're actually, making a major league shift in the operating system that's booting up. We're going to copy over the virtual hard drive to the domain controller. We're going to go into BCD edit. We're going to make alterations to the bootloader sequence. And we're going to create the ability to select which operating system we want to actually use to boot up the machine with. We're going to have an option to boot up from the physical hard disk, from the primary operating system, or the virtual hard drive. So it's going to be pretty cool, but we do need to copy over that virtual hard drive first. So let's go ahead and move over to the server and let's get this done. All right, here we are over on DC1. Now, this is the physical machine that you're looking at. This is not a virtual machine. And so let's go ahead and start up our process by going to the C drive here. And you'll notice here that I have created a folder. Now this folder, let's see, is this shared? I don't think this folder is currently shared. Let's just go in here and check. Yep, it's not shared. So let's go ahead and let's share this folder off. I'm just going to share it with myself because that's the only one who needs access to it. All right, so now we've shared ISO. And now I'm going to bring up the Hyper-V Globo machine, and we're going to copy over a virtual hard drive from that machine over to this one. So let's go ahead and move on over to it. Okay, here we are over on the Hyper-V machine. Let's go ahead and open up some library windows here. And when you click on library once, of course, it opens up one library window. And if you click on it again, it goes away. Well, it's not very conducive for file transfer, is it? So if you hold down the Shift key, by the way, you can open up a second library window. Hey, magic, huh? Yep, just hold down the Shift key, click on the library button again, and it will pop open for you another window. Let's go ahead and open up a DC1 now, R2, and let's go to the ISO share folder. And now let's go over here to the second window, and let's go to the, most of them are all of our VHDs are on the G drive here. So just navigate over to wherever your virtual machines are. And oh, by the way, I probably should tell you, also make sure that your, whatever machine that you're going to be transferring the virtual hard drive from, if you're going to be copying it, make sure that the machine is turned off. If you try to hijack a virtual hard drive that is currently in use, it's going to be angry. So remember, we try not to make the computers as angry, as less angry as we can. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable, but you know, we try. All right, so let's go to server core. I think this is the one we're going to grab. And let's just go ahead and copy server core R2 VHD over here to DC1. Now, by the way, this is one way to do it. This is my preferred method, by the way, is create a virtual machine in Hyper-V, load it up with an operating system, and then transfer over to a machine that you want to use to boot it from. Now, there's another way, by the way, and let me go ahead and just show you real quick. This is I want to kind of dip into the storage bucket here real quick. But in the storage section, under disk management, you can actually create a VHD without using Hyper-V. Hey, how about that, huh? So we could actually create a virtual hard drive here. So we can go ahead and do that here real quick. You notice here that I created one already just for practice. And, you know, it'll just sit there. So let's go ahead and create another one here real quick. And, you know, creating a VHD is easy. You already know this. Let's just call this one Practice 1 then. And we'll tell that to save. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to make this guy 20 megs. You know, you can make it gigabytes, terabytes, whatever size you think you might need for that operating system. Now, if you're going to be booting up from it, your best bet is probably a fixed size. A dynamically expanding hard drive, you're probably going to take a little bit of a performance hit on, but I'm going to create a dynamically expanding one for the time being, just due to the fact that it takes forever and 3 days to create a fixed-sized hard drive. So I'm just going to go ahead and create one here real quick. And you'll notice here that it shows up like a regular disk. You'll notice here that I have one of them already. This is the one I created before when I was just kind of messing around with this. But since they show up here as regular storage devices, you can treat them like regular storage devices. You right-click, initialize the disk. Yep, that'll be fine. Go ahead and create a simple volume. No biggie. Bam, 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 and it's done. Now, this does not expand your storage, right? Yes, you have disks, but think of these more as partitions than actual disks because you're not actually expanding the amount of space you have on your physical hard drive due to the fact that these VHD files live on the hard drive, right? So you're actually eating up space on your disk. You're not adding to the amount of space on the particular machine. This is not my preferred method, by the way, because at this point in time, we now have to perform the next steps I'm going to show you here in just a little bit in order to set up the machine, the bootloader, in order to actually recognize the virtual hard drive as something that's bootable. But then you also have to install an operating system on it. And like I said, I think it's just way easier to do it in a virtual machine and not have to mess around with trying to figure out which VHD to boot to and all that. Just make it in Hyper-V and then move to wherever you got to go. All right. By the way, we should probably go ahead and detach these guys here real quick so they're not confusing me. All right, so now we're just back to the regular amount of discs that you have seen and are used to. All right, let's see how we're doing here. I know I'm kind of, taking up time while our discs do the whole transfer thing. Okay, Server Core R2 VHD is intact over on DC1. Okay, well, our job is done. Let's go ahead and move back on over to DC1 now. Let's see if I can do this super fast. Hey, that was super fast. All right. Okay, so here is the VHD that we're going to use to boot. Now, I do want to let you know that when we boot up from this virtual hard drive, it's going to be as though it's a brand new installation. It's very similar to SysPrep. It's not SysPrep, okay? But what you're going to see when we actually do boot up is a server core machine that has no unique information in it. It's not going to be joined to a domain. It's going to have one of those stupid, installation names that I really dislike. So we are going to have to do some reconfiguration if we actually want to use this machine. I do want to just kind of warn you what you're going to see here in just a few moments. All right, so now we know where that's at. Now, the next thing that I want to do here is I want to show you the script that we're going to be using in order to finish the setup. Now, there's a couple of other commands that I need to teach you before we can use this script, okay? But like I said earlier, the command we're going to be using is bcd edits. And what this does is it actually modifies the bootloader files. We can use it to create a set of bootloader files. We can use it to delete them. There's all kinds of things that we can do with bcd edit. What we're going to be doing with it is we're going to be using the set switch. And this here GUID thing, I'm going to show you where we're going to get that from in just a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to be setting the device that is used by the bootloader to a virtual hard drive at a particular location. Now what we need to do here is we need to go ahead and fill in what we do know. Let's go ahead and put in the address for the Server Core R2 hard drive, or the virtual hard drive that we're going to be using. .vhd. So all we're doing is just putting in the path, right? I mean, nothing special here. Pretty much most of the time when I give you a script, you're going to have to modify it in some form or fashion. So I'm just going to do a quick Control-C, Control-V, which of course you know is the shortcut to copy and paste. All right, so those two parts of the script are done. We just need to make sure we tell it, okay, bootloader, I want you to look at this file for the device and this file also for the operating system device. Okay, done and done. What's this last one? Do we need to do anything with it? We are going to have to put in the GUID, the globally unique ID for our set of bootloader files, where I'm going to show you what those are in here in just a little bit. What this detect HAL is it's actually going to tell the bootloader to actually, detect new hardware. Done and done. All right, so let's go ahead and let's open up a command line next. And now we're going to just run a couple of commands. First of all, we're going to run bcd edits space /enum for enumerate. What this is going to do is it's going to tell us what the current settings are for the Windows Boot Manager, where it happens to live at, what partition it's on, and where are the files that we're currently using to boot up the machine. You see here that the current set of files, hence the word current, we're currently looking at partition C, or the root of the C disk, and we are booting up from Windows System 32 winload.exe. Here's the description of the operating system that we're currently using to boot up with. And then we have a couple of, a whole bunch of mess of other stuff that we don't really care about right now. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the next step. We're going to make a clone of this particular set of information. We're going to create a clone of the current settings that are currently being used to boot up the machine. Here's how we do it. All right, so here's the command that we're going to use to do this. It's really pretty easy. There's just a couple of weird things that we have to do here for it. So we start off by typing bcd edit /copy, and now we're going to put in a squirrely bracket, and we type in the word current and end the squirrely bracket. Remember, we're just making a copy, a clone of the current settings that are currently being used to boot up the machine. All right, space, then we need to do a /d, and now we're going to put in the name that we're going to use to select whenever we boot up. It's actually going to give us an option to boot up either into the Windows Server 2008 R2 operating system living at Windows System 32, or it's going to give us an option to boot up to Server Core R2. Now we haven't done anything with the Server Core R2 yet because we need to create a new globally unique identifier. That's what GUID means, right? So now I'm just going to go ahead and hit the Enter key. There we go. The entry was successfully copied to, and here is the $1 million GUID right here. This is little guy here. This whole big long mess of numbers is what's going to make it possible for us to create or have a second set of Windows bootloader settings that we can boot into. Now, if you've been around this kind of world for a while, you're thinking, well, what happened to boot any? Right? Boot.ini, you remember that? Well, it's gone. And it has been replaced with what you're seeing here on the screen. If you want to make alterations to the boot sequence in terms of the operating system, you have to use BCDedit. Is there a graphical user interface for this? No, at least not native to Server 2008 R2. We might see some third-party ones, or we might even see a graphical user interface later on. You never know what Microsoft's going to give us later on. But right now, we do not have an easy way to do this. So now we need to go to our notepad where we have our VHD boot script. What we're going to do is we're going to replace these three GUIDs with this big old mess of numbers that we have right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one. By the magic of editing, that GUID is just going to magically appear. Watch this. Alright, now I'm not going to type that in again, so once again, using the magic of Control-C and Control-V, we're going to paste in our GUID here twice. So that way you're not, typing this whole big of mess of numbers in again. And now what we have accomplished is we have created that cloned set of settings for Windows bootloader. We have altered our script to the point where what we're doing with this script is we're just simply telling Windows bootloader, okay, instead of using the C drive and Windows, what I want you to do is I want you to go over here to this spot on the disk, which happens to be on the C drive ISO Server Core R2 VHD. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to save this guy. And now we're going to run this script. So let's go ahead and let's do a quick CD to jump us down to the roots. And now I'm going to do a CD ISO. Of course, you're going to put in wherever you happen to put the script at. Don't forget, you're going to need to take that script that I give to you with this course and make alterations and then save it. Okay? If you don't save it and you try to run this script, Windows will be angry and it'll say, dude, what are you doing? I don't understand what the script is. All right, so we got that. Let's go ahead and do a quick dir. And now just do a VHD boot. And now let's hit the Enter key. And voila, the operation has completed successfully. We have made alterations to this particular set of bootloader information, which is based upon, by the way, the GUID. All right, so this GUID is essentially the unique identifier for this set of bootloader settings that we're going to be using to boot up the machine. All right, so this so far was completely successful. Here's what we need to do next. I need to move over and show you that when I reboot this machine, we're now going to have the option to select between one of the two operating systems. We could select either the native operating system, the Server 2008 R2 system that is already installed, what you're seeing right here on the screen, or we can also select the Server Core operating system that lives on that VHD. Now, here's the thing. I'm actually recording the screen in a remote desktop session, and in order to actually show you this, I'm going to have to reboot this machine. Well, you and I both know that I cannot actually show you the boot up sequence in a remote desktop window. So I'm going to have to switch over to actually a digital camera. We're going to take a few screenshots and I'll talk you through these different screenshots because I do want to show you what this actually does look like. Alright, so you see we're over here on the other machine and taking some quick snapshots. This is the screen I really want you to see. The fact that we are able to switch between the R2 installation or the Server Core R2 installation. And once we selected this guy, we're just going to go ahead and hit the Enter key. and go ahead and boot into the Server Core R2 installation, and it's not going to take very long. It's just going to boot up like it regularly would. Remember that what we're doing is we're actually booting into the Server Core install instead of the primary operating system that's already installed on the hard disk. So you see it's going to load up here, and by the way, it's going to think that we're loading Server Core R2 for the first time. So we're not actually going to get all the basic configurations that I've already done on this machine. And just so you already know how to use sconfig. I'm going to go ahead and log in here real quick. And if you're playing along at home, you'll probably need to change the administrator password. And there we go. Here's Server 2008 R2 Core. And we can go ahead and type in the sconfig command here real quick. Now, I'm not actually going to run through all the basic configurations in this video because you already know how to do that from the IIS 7.5 video. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and reboot this machine into the operating system on this particular machine, and we're going to show you how to then delete this extra boot record that we've just set up. Alright, so I'm back over here on the remote desktop session again. You see that I have rebooted the machine back into Windows Server 2008 R2, the full edition. Let's go ahead and go back into the command prompt. I want to show you one more thing before we're done with this video. Basically, I want to show you how to get rid of one of those items, right? I just did a quick BCD edit, and by the way, if you do just a BCD edit, it's the same thing as typing BCD edit /enum, okay? And let's take a look at the two bootloader sets of data that we currently have. Here's our current one that we copied, and it's the same. But here is our copy. Here is our device. Here is the VHD ISO Server Core VHD. Notice that the path is the same. The only difference is that this Windows System 32 winload.exe is on this virtual hard drive. And also, here is that crazy GUID that we typed in earlier into our script. And now I'm sure you probably understand why I like to do this in a script, right? So that way I don't have to type those GUIDs in a billion times. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete this entry in the boot manager. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, once again, do a BCD edit space /delete. And now, yes, we do need to put in the brackets, and now we need to type in that big squirrely GUID. So we've got in that globally unique identifier in there. There's one more item that we need to make sure that we type in here, and that is a /cleanup. What that's going to do is fully remove this entry from the boot manager database, okay? And now we just simply hit the enter key. And the operation has completed successfully. That was quick. Let's do a real quick BCD edits. And let's see what we got. We got the boot manager entry, okay. And then we have the current, which is on the partition C. That's the Windows Server 2008 R2. And there's no Server Core VHD to be found, is there? So I have successfully deleted that item out of the bootloader. Of course, I can put it back in real easy, right? Because now I got that script. All I need to do is make sure that I create a new clone of the current settings, grab the GUID, paste it into the script, and run the script. So like I said, this stuff isn't that hard, right? So let's go back on over to our slides. Now that we have successfully seen that this stuff actually does work, let's go ahead and let's do some review, and then we'll call it a video. So let's talk about what you should be able to do after watching this video. You should be able to copy a VHD file to another machine. So you should also be able to use BCD edit /enum to list the current entries in the boot manager. And by the way, don't forget, you can just type in BCD edit and do the same thing, right? I've shown you how to create a new boot setup with this particular command, BCD edit /copy the current in the little squiggly brackets /d, and then whatever name you type here. So whatever name you want to show up in the boot manager during the boot sequence, just type that in right there, and you're done with that one, right? And by the way, one of the reasons why I threw these two commands into the what we covered section here is I want you to have just a quick, easy reference just in case you forget, all right? I've shown you how to modify the vhdboot.bat script that I provided for you with this course. You should be able to modify it with the GUID that you received after you clone the current boot settings. And that's just a little bit of typing, but no big deal because we only have to type it in once, right? Then do a couple of copy and paste, and whammo, you got yourself a boot script. Then you should be able to run the VHD boot script to set up the bootloader for that alternate boot and boot up the machine. And then of course don't forget, when you use this technique, you're going to have to reconfigure the basic settings on your machine. It's almost going to be like it's been sysprepped. It hasn't been, but it's almost like it. So keep that in mind as you proceed with this technique. All right, so we were successful in this one. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video.